let's move on to pillar number 2 that we've identified from modern payroll, and that is compliance friendliness. So just to recap, number 1 was customer support. Number 2 is compliance friendly. Can you give us an idea of what sort of compliance issues might be especially costly for a quick service restaurant or another business that employs a lot of hourly workers?
Yeah, absolutely. Running a business with hourly workers, regardless of the industry, is hard enough. But then you add the complexity of trying to keep up with the myriad of laws and regulations. Every state is different. Every county or city can potentially be different. So it just adds a layer of complexity to being a business owner. Um, that your payroll provider really should be able to support you as an employer, business owner, and take that burden off your plate. So, one of the things, especially in the quick service business, for example, that we see come up a lot, or that I've seen come up a lot, is around the type of workers that they tend to employ. So employees are hourly, so they are non-exempt workers, which means they're subject to overtime or double pay if they're working on certain dates. Every jurisdiction is different. Every state is different in terms of their overtime laws. So it's not just the IRS that you have to comply with, but you also have to comply with California state local overtime laws, for example. They're often shift workers. So typically, I'm working special hours on an evening shift or a weekend shift, and that comes with its own set of regulations that a business owner has to comply with. Or I'm oftentimes working different jobs. One day during the week, I might be on dishwashing. The next day, I might be working the front service counter. And so that also requires potentially different pay rates. So multiple pay rates in a single pay period. I might be working at multiple locations. And so working for, this particular location one day, and then the next day working at this location. All of those types of things, especially in this particular industry, come with a set of rules and regulations and compliance laws that you have to adhere to. And when you don't, that comes with a cost of penalties and interest that can be really costly to an employer. In addition, it just reduces employee satisfaction if they're not being paid appropriately for the type of work that they're doing. And so high turnover rates can happen, loss of job satisfaction and engagement. And you've spent, as a business owner, all this time training and onboarding this new hire, finding the new hire and recruiting them in the first place, only to then lose them because your payroll provider wasn't there to help you stay compliant.
Yeah, definitely a lot of complexity, like you mentioned. I was thinking with your example of maybe you have a worker that splits time between 2 different locations. If you own a franchise restaurant, with 2 different locations, maybe those locations are in different counties or different
Right.
states right next to each other. You can just see how quickly things can get so complex. So
Yes.
yeah, definitely some examples that really kind of illustrate that. So with all of the complexity and kind of the risk that comes with compliance, what are some ways that a payroll platform can kind of reassure business owners to feel a little bit more confident that's like, my payroll solution has my back. I don't need to be reading up on the latest in labor laws and, all the different regulations that apply to me.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, you should be able to, as a business owner, rely on your payroll provider to help ensure you're compliant, which is also why it's so important that when you are vetting payroll providers, you make sure they have that expertise and specialize in your specific industry. So if I'm a quick service restaurant, making sure my payroll provider really knows the laws and regulations associated with that industry, because every industry is different. So, your payroll provider really should be guiding you through, are your workers independent contractors? Are they employees? And what does that mean for you as a business owner in terms of the types of things that you have to do to comply with? Do you have to do I-9 verification to make sure they're eligible to work in the United States? Are they assisting you with new hire reporting? Because every tax agency, when you hire a new employee, requires you to report them for unemployment purposes. And if they are going above and beyond, are they assisting you with risk mitigation and management by employing various automated checks for fraud? Are they, as a payroll provider, helping you as a business owner mitigate any fraud risks, for example, which can be very costly if something like that happens? Um, some providers even assist business owners with tax account management. Like, are you getting my unemployment rate from directly from the tax agency every year for me, or do I need to keep up with that? Also very expensive, can result in penalties and interest if my tax rate has changed year to year. And I didn't realize it because I'm not, as a business owner, I own a Burger King. I may not know that Texas, for example, changes my unemployment rate in July instead of the start of a calendar year in January, and may not realize that it changed mid-year and that I have been underpaying. So, those are the types of things I would recommend, and I often expect a payroll provider to be helping at a minimum, at least guiding and assisting and educating employers on what to look out for, how to stay in compliance, and if they're going above and beyond, like I said, even taking that a step further and doing it for them.
Yeah, great examples. I guess the next question that makes sense, I asked this about the previous pillar, but as a business owner is vetting different payroll solutions, what are some specific questions that they can ask? I mean, you've kind of touched on some of the issues that you
Yeah.
could formulate questions around, but what would you recommend as far as specific questions?
Yeah, specifics are, do you do I-9 verification? Will you do complete the new hire reporting? Do you do tax rate exchanges with each of the tax states in tax agencies that I operate within? Will you assist me with registering my business if I hire a new employee in a new state for the first time? Are you completing fraud checks to mitigate fraudulent potential activity? Will you let me know when the state changes and issues a new W-4 form? That's a real common one that many of us, I filled out a W-4 when I first started working for Check. I'm not, as an employee, out there making sure that a new form hasn't come out that I need to now fill out again. And business owners often aren't either. That's, I'm just trying to run a successful business. I'm not keeping up with when the IRS or my state provides an updated W-4 form. So that's a big one that tends to happen. Are you going to let me know when I need to make sure that my bank accounts are funded, so that I can make so that you're making tax payments timely and filing timely? Are you going to let me know when I need to make sure that the W-2 is to my employee every year end so that the employee can file? There's regulations involved with making sure you get that type of information to your workers on time and by certain deadlines. A big one in this particular industry, especially for quick service restaurants or any business with hourly employers, is, will you tell me when I need to pay overtime or what paid time off laws are in certain jurisdictions where I might employ workers? It varies both on overtime and paid time off regulations from state to state, city to city, county to county. It's a lot to keep up with. And when it does, even if you do know it now, it may change in the future. How are you supposed to know, like, when those things change and when, you might need to start paying overtime? And so those last two especially are huge benefits that a payroll provider should be helping a business owner stay in compliance with.
Yeah, that's a great list. I feel like we need to like type this all out and share this with everyone watching this, because I feel like it, put that up on your
Yeah, hoping
wall.
I'm not scaring
No,
anybody off.
no, not at all. I think this is going to be very helpful.